welcome to Potter Revisited, episode 80. I'm Tori.
And I'm Shay.
Today we are covering chapter 20 of Goblet of Fire, the first task.
Or, as we like to call it, potential painful, embarrassing public death.
But Harry's kind of,
stressed.
Getting ready for the first task. He's stressed. He's putting his hat on his foot instead of socks. And he goes down to meet Hermione at breakfast, and she's eating with Ginny, which I love that they hang out.
I mean, it must be exhausting being because Hermione's friends are just dudes, Ginny's brothers are all dudes. It's probably nice to just hang out with a lady once in a while, especially when Harry and Ron are being exhausting. I feel like Ginny can relate to that to some extent.
But Hermione's kind of giving Harry advice because he's telling her everything that happened with Sirius and the dragons, and Hermione's just let's just try and keep you alive until Tuesday, and everything else we'll worry about later.
Yeah, she's prioritizing. It's triage, It's we have to figure out which wound is the most dangerous and fix that one first, and then we can swing back and deal with the rest.
Yeah, but they're studying to find out what Harry could do to beat the dragons, because Sirius told them it was an easy spell, so they're trying to figure out what easy spell Sirius was talking about. And while they're studying, Hermione's talking basically to herself. She's just adding commentary, and she says that she just casually drops that she can do switching spells, and she's like, we haven't learned them yet because they're owl level spells, but I've been practicing. And it's just girl,
I don't actually think she's intentionally humble bragging. I think she's talking, narrating her thought process, and she's what else have I learned?
That's definitely a Hermione thing.
And a me thing. There's certain things you do when you're thinking. I'm often
thinking out loud. Talking
out loud, exactly. And I think that her thoughts are jumping back and forth between what do I need to know, what do I know, what have I studied? I've studied stuff for owls, okay.
Yeah, it's just so funny how she is, and then Harry's just there being Hermione, now's the time. He wants solutions, he needs answers. And Hermione's just rambling off about a bunch of things that aren't really helpful for him at this moment.
No. So I guess my first thought is, because they're trying to figure out all these options, what are we going to do? Is there a spell? Can we transfigure it? And my question is what would you do if you were in Harry's position and you basically have to fight get by a dragon the next day? Because when I think about it, my first thought is to put it to sleep somehow. So in my mind, the first type of spells I would be looking for is some sort of magic lullaby or something that will lull the dragon to sleep. Because that in my mind, that's very classic fairy tale-esque. You play your harp and the dragon falls asleep and you would get the egg. And I think that's the first place my brain would go. But what would your first, I guess, thought on how to resolve it be?
My first thought would probably be, something to put it to sleep, or I think both Fleur and Cedric try and distract it, which I think is also something you'd go for, because you never really think about something that can defeat a dragon. You're just how can I survive, basically?
Yeah, and it's funny because as I'm reading some of what Cedric did with a dog, by the way, I would not use a dog as my distraction, even if it's a transfigured fake dog. That's horrible. Don't use your dogs as live bait, or your fake magic dogs as live bait, people. It's too much. But Harry can do a Patronus charm. He could use his Patronus. As dragons see, I don't know how dragons' vision works. Maybe they see motion, maybe they see heat, I don't know. But if they just see visible things, I think a shiny deer running around would be pretty distracting.
I do think it's amazing that Harry kind of figured this all out when he was 14, and they have their owls on them. Harry hasn't had his owls yet.
Yeah, he's doing he does good work for a small child. I mean, he does good work for anyone, but it's especially impressive because he's still I don't even think 14 is a real teenager. He's a preteen still. There are movies he cannot get into at the theater, and yet he can almost die fighting dragons.
Crumb's back in the library, and Hermione's very annoyed by it. And all I can think about is when Harry's kind of eyeing up Crumb to see what he's doing, and Crumb's looking over at them, being looking over at them. And all I can think about is the scene where Crumb kind of confronts Harry over his relationship with Hermione.
So they're going through books about dragons and trying to figure it out. And one of the books Harry decides isn't the one he needs is Men Who Love Dragons Too Much. And I just did they write this book because they knew Hagrid? Are dragons an addiction? Sometimes people buy midlife crisis cards. Is it a thing in the magic world where in your 40s or your 50s and you're midlife crisis, must get dragons? Or are there people who hoard dragons, crazy cat ladies? I have so many questions. And why is it men specifically? Crazy cat lady is a stereotype. Is there such thing as crazy dragon wizard? Is that a thing in their culture that we don't know about? Because, like, clearly multiple men had issues with how much they love their dragons. Maybe random men wander into dragon fields and, like, get eaten, and it's a story of all those idiots. I don't know. But I would read Men Who Love Dragons Too Much because I have questions and I have concerns.
I wonder if Hagrid's self-aware enough to read that or not.
No, he'd be like, I love dragons just the right amount.
Just the right amount. Unfortunately, Harry's, he's really struggling with the idea that he has to face a dragon in days, and he's just very woefully unprepared, and he actually considers running away.
Yeah.
From Hogwarts for, like, the first time ever, and we kind of have the last 3 books where Harry keeps referencing that Hogwarts is the one place he feels at home, it's his one place he belongs, and so here's the first time him really being like, I would rather be anywhere else but here. He just consider going back to the Dursleys, but then he's like, I'd rather actually deal with a dragon than deal with Dudley.
Yeah, he literally says basically that his home life with the Dursleys is worse than a painful, embarrassing public death.
So Harry realizes very suddenly that Cedric's the only one that doesn't know about the dragons, because he has kind of an idea that Madame Maxine told Fleur and that Karkaroff told Crumb, and he feels really, like, bad about it. And he puts it together, and he goes to tell him, and no one really kind of, like, tells him about this, or, like, he doesn't even tell Hermione. He just, like, in his heart knows that, like, it's not right that Cedric doesn't know. Like, he should know too, so we're all, like, on the same playing field. And I just feel it's very mature.
Yeah, and he talks about it just like it's a fair play. But I also think, like, Harry knows how dangerous it is because dragons are scary, and he's actively terrified about dragons. And I think there's a part of him that, like, if he didn't tell Cedric and said something happened to Cedric, Harry would feel guilty for the rest of his life.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think Harry is aware of the consequences. So it's not just, I want to be on a fair playing field for this game because fair sport and fair play and I value the game. He also knows the risks, and he's like, having an upper hand in this game is not worth him being in more danger, like it's a safety thing as well as a sportsmanship thing. Like, he just cares about people.
Yeah, definitely. It's just in Harry's character, but I just thought it's very mature for, I think, a 14-year-old to, like, he just knows that it's not right, and he goes to tell Cedric on his own, especially because a lot of Cedric's friends and just people around him have been really mean to Harry, like, especially his friends have been, like, quoting Rita Skeeter's article at him.
Yeah, I think it's good that, like, it doesn't seem like Cedric has done any of that. It seems like Cedric just, like, puts up with it.
Cedric is not really saying anything, like, he's been telling people, not to, like, say stuff, but, like, he's not saying it.
He's a good dude. He's not going to go out of his way to get people to stop treating Harry like that because he's got his own things to deal with. Again, exciting death tournament. But he doesn't want it around him, and he's not encouraging it. And I think that's good considering how often people forget about Cedric in this tournament.
He's just a good guy. But Harry comes over, and he doesn't want to talk to Cedric in front of his friends, which I get because his friends have been being rude to Harry. So he like slices open Cedric's bag to get him, like, alone. And Cedric's kind of suspicious of Harry when Harry's just like, he's just like, dragons, that's the next task.
I mean, honestly, it's kind of random. Like, what? Like, maybe thought Harry was coming over to, like, talk shit, like, oh, I'm gonna school you so bad, or something. I don't know. I'm sure or maybe he thought Harry was coming over to say, hey, why are you all being so mean to me? I'm a school champion. Do you know what I mean? There's so many things I think he could have expected from Harry. None of them were, I'm reaching out to give you valuable information that will help you. I think that's the last thing, like, Cedric would expect.
Especially, I think, after Rita's article where she painted this version of Harry, and he doesn't know Harry that well.
No, he's really just played some Quidditch against him.
So, like, how would he know?
Exactly.
If Harry, like, didn't ask for this article, or if, like, what's going on there. So he kind of doesn't really know. We don't really know if he believes Harry, but, Harry doesn't really beat her in the bush. He's just like, dragons are the next task. Now you know. Bye.
And so, fun fact is, to sever Cedric's bag, he uses Diffindo, which is another spell from Harry, and we get really excited when he does new spells, because he doesn't do many. So I actually looked into it, and this is the 7th spell he's learned that we witness him using. So, like, there might be spells he learned in class, we don't hear that class, and he never uses it in front of us, but this is the 7th spell we see Harry cast. Not, like, individual spell, but, like, type of spell. So, like, Lumos 7 times doesn't count as 7 things. And I got, like, a layout of what spells he's done so far. So in year 1, he did Wingardium Leviosa and Lumos. Those were his spells in year 1, coming in strong.
Nice.
Year 2, Lumos again, Alohomora, Rictum Sempra, Expelliarmus, and Lumos. Year 3, Lumos, Expecto Patronum, Expelliarmus. And then year 4, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire is Lumos, Expelliarmus, and Diffindo. And he does more spells later, but this is up to now. So, like, he's really only performed, like, he only knows 7 spells at this point. And that's pretty crazy considering. More than we would think, though, I would say. More than you, because we joke he only knows 3 at this point. So 7 is pretty good.
Yeah.
So I have one more sort of fun spell-related question. What do you think are Harry's 3 most used spells? And what's your guess for how often they were used in the series, in the entire book series?
Well, he definitely uses Expelliarmus, like, a lot, because that's, like, his go-to spell, as we know. I'm trying to think what else he probably uses a lot, but, like, as verbally said. Maybe Lumos, based on your list? Maybe Stupefy, based on just, the last 3 books?
Okay, do you want to see what the answers are?
Sure.
His first most used spell is Expelliarmus, which he uses over 30 times in the series.
Wow. Really is his signature spell.
His second most used spell is Lumos, which is used 15 or 20 times. And his third most used spell is Expecto Patronum.
Oh, how did I forget about the Patronus spell?
Which is 15 to 20 times.
Oh, it's nice to keep track of like, little random tidbit stuff like that.
I like to keep things zesty.
But as Harry's confessing to Cedric about the dragons, Moody overhears him and brings him into his office. And this is like, Harry kind of goes into every office of the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. He hasn't been into Quirrell's office, but I'm pretty sure he goes into every other office.
I feel like part of it has a lot to do with the fact that professor changes a lot. So, like, we get more time with those professors because they're always more important to the plot. So it makes sense that he would also spend time with them in their office. But I also think first year, Harry didn't know what subjects he was good at or passionate about or cared about. So he had no reason to hang out with Quirrell. But, like, he sort of, to some extent, forms a relationship, whether it be good or bad, with all his other Defense Against the Dark Arts teachers. Like, they have a specific relationship with each other. So it makes sense that, like, he has those relationships with the teachers of the class he cares about, you know? Like, he's not going to be doing extra divination work and hanging out with Trelawney intentionally, you know?
That'd be interesting.
That'd be wild. Maybe if he needed an alibi for a crime or something. But besides that, there's really nothing that's getting him up there if he doesn't have to be.
We go into Moody's office, which is different than Lupin's. Lupin was probably the one Harry spent the most time with. And we remember Lupin's office with all of the dark creatures and the...
Grindylow.
Well, Moody's office has a bunch of dark detectors and...
gadgets and whatnots.
Yeah, a bunch of gadgets and stuff.
I pictured, like, fidget spinner vibes, but big metal ones. Almost like when you see those, like, solar system dioramas that are all metal and fancy and they're, like, set with gears so they travel the way the planets travel. That's the vibe I picture from a lot of his, like, detectors. I love that when Moody tries to give Harry help, Harry is so full of good sportsmanship that he does not want to accept the help, despite the fact that he knows a lot of the other competitors are probably getting help. But I think it's hysterical that Moody just says, well, cheating has been a tradition of this tournament. I believe that so much. Of course it is. Of course cheating it's a competition between schools. Of course they've been spying on each other and trying to get a foot ahead for the entire history of the tournament. And I think that's just so realistic and believable. I also kind of really like that when Moody asks Harry what his strengths are, Harry says, I don't have any strengths. And Moody's like, you've got strengths if I say you've got them. And it's, like, oddly reassuring. Like, Moody is so confident in himself that he's like, no, you must be good at something because I say you're good at something. And, like, in a weird way, that is so reassuring. And I think my favorite part of this entire discussion, though, with Harry and Moody is when Moody's trying to tell Harry what he'll need, and he says, for that you'll need, and Harry goes, Hermione. Because, like, that really does sum up the entire series. What do you need? Hermione. You always need Hermione. She is always the answer, and if she isn't, she has the answer.
Yes, so Moody has all these dark detectors around, and he claims that the reason that they all go off, or they're like the sneak us whistling or whatever, is because there's so much lies and mischief at the school, which does make sense, but it's also interesting to consider that this Moody's an imposter, and he's actively deceiving people.
My question is, like, are these devices, like, calibrated to the real Mad-Eye Moody so that they're spinning because Barty Crouch Jr., an enemy of Mad-Eye Moody, is there? Or are they calibrated like just for whoever's room they're in? Like they sort of belong to that person? In which case, maybe they would actually only show enemies and lies that are against Barty Crouch Jr., because in that moment he's the owner of them, sort of. Like if Harry lent Ron his sneak scope, the sneak scope would work for Ron's enemies, I think. Like, you know what I mean? I feel like I don't know if they're calibrated specific to the person. So I know a lot of people say that they're going off because Moody's really Barty Crouch. But if Barty's the Crouch is the one who like turned them on when he arrived and unpacked them from the crate, maybe they're loyal to Barty Crouch and they're only showing Barty's enemies, which would be Harry Potter and a bunch of lion kids in the school and Dumbledore.
Alternate point to consider.
You never know how the calibration of dark wizard detectors work. The documentation just hasn't been written.
With Moody's conversation, Harry realizes what he needs, which, of course, what you said, he needs Hermione.
Hermione.
So he goes over and he's like, Hermione, you need to help me. And I love her sass, but she's like, what do you think I've been trying to do?
You idiot.
Like, Harry, I'm trying to keep you alive. But yeah, she's really a good friend because she's been helping him in all her spare time, and Harry wants to skip divination and still practice the summoning charm. But she's like, yeah, Harry, I'm not doing that.
She's not going to skip arithmancy. I mean, that's basically math.
In divination, Trelawney's doing her bit where she's like, oh my god, Harry, what a coincidence. The Mars and Saturn are in this certain alignment, and that means that you're going to die a really painful death.
Yeah, it's going to suck to be you this month, Harry. It's like Mars is always in retrograde for Harry Potter. You know what I'm saying?
I can't remember. He says something sassy, and Ron actually looks at him, and I just feel like this is Ron kind of after Harry blew up at him the other night, he's really kind of trying to catch Harry's eye and be trying to make it up to him, but Harry's pissed and he's just
not ready.
He doesn't want to even look at Ron right now. He's angry at the world.
I think Harry says something along the lines of she says, you're definitely going to die horribly in the next week or something. And Harry says, well, I hope it's quick and painless. I think that's along the lines of what he says.
Yeah, but definitely see more Ron trying to catch Harry's eye rather than the other way around now. And Harry's too mad. He has too much going on. He's like, I don't even want to look at Ron right now.
Yeah.
Summoning charms are the one spell I think that all the Harry Potter spells that I actually wish I had in real life, because I feel like it's very common to you're just sitting down or you're somewhere away from something. I'm like, what would I give just to be able to call something towards me and not have to move?
Oh god, I wanted to separate. If I could do any one magical thing, it would be disapparation, because I don't drive. And also, there's people that I love. I haven't seen Tori since last January, and I have friends I haven't seen since even longer than that. It's it would be so cool to just say a spell and be there. I wonder, I guess you could disapparate with your luggage, because I'd want to bring my clothes. Although if you can disapparate quickly and it doesn't exhaust you, you could disapparate to your friend's house for dinner and then disapparate home, put on your pajamas and go to bed. And that sounds ideal. So Harry is also practicing the summoning charm in divination, because he actually needs to learn that. And he's not having much success, but at one point he thinks he may have summoned a fly, but he also thinks there's a chance that maybe that was just a stupid fly. And I think that is so funny. I love when Harry has these moments. But also I wonder, wouldn't a living, moving thing be harder to summon than something that is stationary and inanimate? I think maybe smaller things would be easier than bigger things because there's less molecules to move. But I think something alive that has its own will, like a fly that would want to avoid being in your hands, would be harder. It's sentient. So I think that if he did do that and it wasn't just a stupid fly, it was a good job, Harry.
Yeah.
Or it was a stupid fly. You never know.
Yeah, you never know. Harry, eventually gets the summoning charm. And then he has this kind of quip to Hermione after they get to 2 a.m. working on the spell. He's like, you know what to do the next time I had trouble learning a spell? Just threaten me with a dragon. Hermione's probably just I'm going to kill you. It is so late.
She should just threaten him with dragons going forward. I wish she took that. Because, I feel one of the things that we don't get a lot of with the Golden Trio is, inside jokes. Sometimes they'll roll their eyes or Hagrid will do something. I'm oh, classic Hagrid. But there's not a lot of, inside jokes. And I feel this would be a good one to carry later on in the series when she's trying to get Harry to, study for his owls. And she's like, I swear to God, I will go find a dragon. You know what I mean?
She's like, I'm going to get Charlie to bring a dragon here if you don't do your homework.
Don't make me get out my dragon. I just think that would be it's such a friendship thing when your friend says something so iconic that you bring it up whenever you can.
But The next morning is the day of the first task, and McGonagall comes to take Harry over to where it's happening, and she's giving Harry advice, and she's obviously very stressed. Like, she's very pale, and obviously does not agree with this.
One of the few adults who cares about Harry's well-being.
Gotta give props to Minnie G for, she's not in control of this situation, but she's trying to give Harry some tips and, make sure he's okay.
I kind of love that she doesn't really expect things from Harry in the way that other profs do. Like, they're all like, this is how you win, and this is how you do it the best, and this is how you'll come out on top, and this is how you'll... And she just sort of, like, lets him know there are safety precautions in place. She wants him to live more than she wants him to win. And she can tell that he's worried, and she's saying, like, listen, you won't be judged. No one's going to judge you for how you do out there. Like, it's a kind of reassurance that, like, acknowledges the whole circumstance of Harry going in there when everyone else's is just the same as you would treat Cedric or Victor or someone who intentionally signed up for this and, like, thinks they're ready and prepared and shows this. She's the only one who, like, her advice and her reassurance is very much, you didn't sign up for this, you don't want to win, and you don't have to win, you can survive, and I want you to survive, and you will be safe as we can keep you. Like, and it's just nice to see, like, Minerva acknowledging that part of Harry and that reality of the situation, because a lot of people like to just sweep what's going on with Harry under the rug and just move on with how fun the tournament is and how exciting it is. And it's, like, really validating for Harry, I would say, to have someone just be automatically believing that winning isn't your priority and being there wasn't your choice and just sort of want you to not die.
Yeah, it is interesting because Harry does reflect when he's in the 10th year champions that they all signed up for this and he didn't. Like, he was forced into this, and yeah, it's hard to be like, to go into that being like they're all nervous, but he's reflecting that they at least committed to this, like they wanted to do this.
I feel like this part of the chapter reminds me so much of waiting in line to get on a roller coaster.
Oh, yes.
Like, being on a roller coaster is great, and I love it. Well, the slow incline before the big jump is the worst. If you go up, 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 and then they drop you. But, like, it's that, like, anticipation of what's happening, even if the actual thing isn't. Like, you have that nausea, tightness in your stomach, and, like, that stress that's a little bit of excitement, but, like, biologically built into you. And, like, I just feel it when Harry's sitting there stressing and being nervous. I've never been in that situation, but being in line as you get closer and closer to the front of the line for a really big roller coaster is the closest, like, physiological comparison I have.
Yeah, but they come in and Bagman's there and they have to choose their dragons. And I just think, of course Harry gets the angry and dangerous dragon that Charlie remarked last chapter. Of course.
Yeah. I mean, it's a novel. All the bad things have to happen to Harry so that every success Harry has is somehow more impressive than everyone else's, which is, like, fair. He's the main character in a kid's book. But I do find that him getting the dragon that everyone knows is the worst one and getting to go last kind of feels like the thing that, like, pulls me out of the believability. And I know it's a story about magic and wizards, but, like, I can believe that in the world. But, like, on top of all of this, him also getting the worst dragon and, like, story-wise, it's the most exciting for Harry to go last. And sometimes I wish that, like, authors would occasionally compromise a bit on, like, the drama to, like, lean in a bit more to making it feel believable. And I think this is one of those moments.
So we get this moment where Bagman pulls Harry aside and he offers to help him with the tournament. Like, he asks if he has, like, a plan and giving him advice. And Harry's kind of thrown off being like, this is kind of weird. Like, this guy is a judge. Like, why is he, like, doing this? Because Harry's all very concerned about the fact that he's already kind of cheated because he found out about the dragons. So he doesn't want, like, to get in any more trouble. Even though Moody said that cheating's a part of the tournament, he's just kind of like, what's going on here? So it kind of little foreshadowing hint about Bagman going forward where he's being a bit shady.
Yeah, and it also feels like a different level of cheating. Like, at this point, it makes sense that, like, the heads of the other schools are obviously helping and preparing. He knows that Fleur and Crumb found out about the dragons, so he knows that they're getting help. And, like, Hagrid showed Harry the dragon, but he didn't give him any tips on what to do with it. So I think it's safe to say that Harry knows other people are getting help from someone from their school, like they're finding, like, a mentor or something, And that's, like, even to him, he can come to terms with Moody giving him some advice, even if Sirius had told him a spell. But, like, Barty Crouch is supposed to be impartial, and I think that's where it feels dirty. And he's, like, running the tournament. Like, it feels Like if you were watching a hockey game and the ref had a Leafs tattoo, you'd be like, I wonder who he's preferring. Like it feels different to have it be Moody who's in that position. I mean, to have it be um, Ludo Bagman who's in that position rather than having the teachers of the specific students or their headmasters. Like it's a different level of cheating, and it's grimier. One of the specific things Ludo says is that Harry is the underdog and that's why he wants to help him. But underdog to me is a very, like, it's like a sports movie phrase or it's a betting phrase. And I think the moment he says, Harry, you're the underdog, it makes me think, oh, he's betting on Harry. That's the moment you know. If you're not sure, or you haven't thought about the fact that he collected bets for the Quidditch tournament, maybe he would do this. My brain was immediately like, okay, he's placing bets and he's betting on Harry.
Yeah, the way he phrases it to Harry, because Harry's from the get-go, he's suspicious. And he's like, oh, I've taken a liking to you. Oh, I feel bad that you're forced into this tournament and you're like so much younger and so much more inexperienced. But in the reality was he was placing a huge bet on Harry to have a big payout to pay off his debtors.
In that moment, I was like 100% confident of that fact. And that made it even grimier that he offered to help him cheat because that's illegal.
Harry, of course, has to go last, as you were talking about. And I do feel that, like, the anticipation is sometimes the worst thing about something, especially wanting to get something over with.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of like when you had to do presentations in school, and you would usually teachers would let you like sign up for certain days and times, and I always like to go on the second day and be one of like not the first one, but at least like third or fourth, so you see a few people go before you, see how they do, and then like I never wanted to like drag it out because I wanted to get it over with, because I hated public speaking, and this kind of is like Harry, where he's like he wants this, he's not here for fun, he was forced into this, he just wants to get this over with and like have it done, and he has to wait for all four of the other champions, and he can't see what they're doing either, so he's just like, sitting there waiting.
So Harry finally has his turn, so he goes out there and he summons the broom, and the broom listens. Good job, broom. And it immediately feels like Quidditch. He gets on his broom, he's up in the air, and he's immediately like, oh, this is Quidditch. I know this. I like this. I love this. And like, I just love how similar it is to Quidditch because we don't really get Quidditch anywhere else in this book. So they make it feel like Quidditch the way it's announced and the way Harry's thought process is. And like, it's not only Quidditchy because he chose the broom. It feels like there are elements of the game that were set in place by the game makers that also feel that way. Like the fact that it's a golden egg and he tries to chase the golden snitch in Quidditch.
Yeah, definitely.
So like, it's very similar. And it even sort of balances a bit out because unlike the snitch, the egg is large and stationary, and like the dragon has a tail, but basically that's just like the opposition beaters. It's basically just dragon Quidditch. Like that's how he handles this entire task. He's like, what if I just Quidditch? And I love that for him.
In the movie, they drag this out, which I get for the drama, but I forgot how short it was.
They pull the chain and fly around the castle, and
oh yeah, they really upped like the danger here.
Yeah, which makes sense. They want to make it feel really exciting on film, and visually, that's more exciting than 2 swoops on a broom.
Yeah, because it's only a few paragraphs where you kind of get Harry facing this dragon. I do feel like the concept of this task is really cruel because they have the champions, facing a dragon in general, and they were supposed to do it by surprise. That was really crazy and wild. But, that's Hogwarts. But they have the champions, like the whole task is to get the egg from the dragon. But it feels really cruel because they requested, like, mother dragons, and they also have real dragon eggs there, so it's like in like their nest, like they think that this is like their egg, and yeah, and it's just like kind of fucked up.
I think they did it on purpose. I think they did it because they knew nesting mothers would be more territorial and more protective and therefore more aggressive, and it would make for better sport. But it also means it's more likely there's going to be injuries, and B, as what happens with one of the champions, the actual eggs can get damaged. And like those are unborn baby dragons that mother wants to protect, and you're like risking them for sport.
Yeah, aren't dragons like a protected species based off what we know that Charlie does? Like, isn't that like go against what they...
Right? Like, even if you're like, it's fine, we're going to sacrifice these mother dragons because we're assholes. Like, throwing the eggs in there too is so many levels of shitty. Like, none of the they shouldn't do it with dragons. Like, it's just mean to the dragons. It's not fair. They should make fake dragons with magic. Like, you've got Dumbledore and the heads of 2 other top elite wizarding schools. Like, do you have to really hurt and stress out a fantastical magical creature? You shouldn't. Just like everyone takes turns dueling Dumbledore is a very exciting first round challenge.
Yeah, it's crazy. I feel like this challenge is mostly just to bring Turley into the story for him to have something to do, because the other 2 tasks seem pretty thought out, and this one's just like, oh, Harry does Quidditch, because there's no Quidditch in this book.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the Quidditch chat. But also, I think the author like was still sort of deciding which tropes and elements of classic fantasy they wanted to include, and they had included dragons earlier, and I think they're trying to like dragons feel more like high fantasy to me, which is like elevated in a way, and like the worlds feel bigger and have more history, and I think including dragons makes the tournament and the things around the dragons feel more historic and more like they come down through the ages, and like it just adds like a level of like fantasy class sort of to have dragons, I guess. Like it's very classy. I don't know. It's not classy to use dragons like that, but having dragons in your fantasy makes people think of the classic dragons of fantasy, and you want to be correlated to the people who write the classic dragons of fantasy.
But Harry, of course, uses seeker prowess, and he gets the egg, and he's finally done it. He's beat the dragon, thank God, and everyone seems very relieved. McGonagall, tells him good job, and he knows that she's like shaking as she she's like, oh, good job, Potter.
She needed some of our panic attack pills.
Yeah, she's probably gonna go like smoke a cigarette around the corner or something.
Oh my God. Just like chain smoking, not even watching, just in the back, like nope.
This is what Dumbledore's done to her. Another person that's probably mad at Dumbledore is Pomfrey, because she's in the medical tent, cleaning up the champions, and she's pissed.
The wounded children. She's like, wow, we took the children and we threw them in a den with dragons to watch them fight for sport. That's safe.
Yeah, I'm surprised she didn't resign after this.
God, I don't know how they keep her. Like, maybe she's like secretly cursed and she has to be there. Maybe she's a ghost. Because the ghosts are kind of stuck there. Maybe Madame Pomfrey is actually a ghost and we just don't realize.
Maybe Dumbledore is blackmailing her.
Either she's a ghost or he's blackmailing her. I think those are the top options. For sure. Because there's no way she's like, or maybe she just like really actually likes children, and this is like she knows no one else is protecting them. Like she's like, if I leave, they'll all just die. Like I am literally the only one keeping Harry Potter alive.
Yeah, she's like, if I leave, Dumbledore's gonna do something crazy if I leave, and these children are gonna die.
And I think when we find out the prophecy about how important Harry is to defeat Voldemort later on, I wonder if Madame Pomfrey goes into Dumbledore's office with a list of times she saved Harry's life. Like, these are the times I've saved the world. I would like a raise.
In the medical tent, Hermione and Ron come in to see Harry, and Hermione she's fingernail marks all over her face where she's obviously stressed for Harry. And there's kind of like this awkward moment because Ron's in there and Harry's still pissed at him, and Hermione's just, stressed.
Yeah.
But they finally make up, and I do think it's very, mature for Ron that he actually, despite everything, admits that he was wrong, because I do think Harry needed to hear that he wasn't lying, that he didn't do this, and for Ron to admit it to him.
I think it's because, the idea that Ron would believe Harry would do that is fundamentally saying he doesn't actually know Harry as a person. And you want your friends to know you as a person, If your friend assumes something of you that is so out of character, it's like, did that friend ever know me at all? Are we even friends if they think I'm like that? So, Harry needs that to be like, no, you're right. Okay, Ron was bitter and he was going through stuff that correlated to what happened to me, but he knows me. He just wasn't ready.
Because I do think at 14, when you get in fights with friends, I think boys don't tend to really discuss fights or the feelings that kind of put you in that fight. I feel like you kind of get to a point where you're just kind of like you don't really acknowledge the fight. You're just like, okay, we're friends again, and we're just never going to talk about this thing that we went through again.
Yeah. It's like we fought last week, but now I want to play Tony Hawk Pro Skater, and we're going to do that together because you're my person I play Tony Hawk Pro Skater with. I don't know why that's the example, but like instead of acknowledging their feelings, is play Tony Hawk Pro Skater.
Yeah, but Ron confesses he was wrong, and that's kind of all Harry really needs. Like, he starts going into this like really big apology, and Ron and like saying how stupid he was, and Harry's like, forget it. Like, it's like all he wants is Ron to be his friend, and he just needed Ron to know that like he would never lie about putting his name in the Goblet of Fire, and this is serious, and he really needed Ron, and he needed Ron to like know that that wasn't him, and Ron admits that, and he doesn't need Ron to apologize or kind of grovel or beg to be his friend again, because he's always been Ron's friend. And I love that. And then, of course, Hermione bursts into tears once they kind of make up. And they kind of, like, get all, like Hermione, like, why are you crying? Like, everything's fine. And, like, the stress these boys put her through.
She's been stressed about it for months. For months.
Like, I think especially we talked about how this was such, like, foreign territory for Hermione, because Harry and Ron have never had a falling out before, and usually they're always mad at her. And that she can deal with.
Yeah, she's survived it before.
Yeah, she survived, but I feel like this was the first time she was put in the middle, and it was very stressful for her, and I don't think they fully understand, like, the lengths that she went through.
Yeah, and I feel like Hermione's frustrated a bit because they just made up, and like to her she's like, this came out of nowhere, because like I think Hermione is like me, where when you have an argument with someone, you kind of want to post-op it. You have to like do a post-mortem before you can fully get over it, where you say, listen, now the first part Ron got, which is, I know you didn't put your name in the Goblet of Fire, and the second part is, I was just jealous. Like I would want to have the whole discussion. I felt jealous, and I think I felt jealous because I would have loved this, because I never get a lot of attention because my brothers are so special and I have one sister, and like I just wanted one moment to be my moment. Then Harry says, I understand that. I'm sorry. I'm an only child and everything is always about me. And I understand that everything is always about me. And I'm sorry. I don't choose that. Like, I want to fully talk through all of my feelings involved, acknowledge how they felt, have them acknowledge how I felt, and see that, like, neither of us is the bad guy in this situation. Neither of us wanted to hurt each other. Like, I wouldn't feel fully satisfied. And I would, in my mind, still expect everyone else to need that because that's what I need. So for them just to be like, that was dumb. Yeah, that was dumb. Okay, we're friends again. I'd be like, when? What did I miss a chapter? Like,
I mean, Ron and Harry never really outwardly talk about their feelings.
I know, but like I'm just so with Hermione. Like, I'm so happy they're friends again, but I'm also like, really? That's all? That's it?
I do think it is just she's had a stressful time. She watched Harry. She was really worried about Harry dying, and so she saw this very like she's had a really rough few weeks trying to keep Harry alive, and then she's also been dealing with their falling out. And she kind of I'm sure she forced Ron to come to the tent. She's like, you have to make up with him, because she's like, I can't do this anymore. And then she's just been so stressed the last, like, month or whatever. And they're just like, oh, Hermione's such a girl, so crazy. And meanwhile, like they don't deserve what she put up with between the both of them.
They don't deserve her. They certainly don't. And I also think, like, I feel like it's a bit of an emotional breakdown, even though it's a good thing, and yet she's a bit frustrated by how it happened and a bit confused about how they put it all away so quickly after it being so severe while it was happening. But I also think it's just like the emotional exhaustion of like something that you've been waiting for and anticipating and hoping for and working for. When it's over, you're just like it's just like such a release.
She needed that release.
The emotional breakdown is like needed for Hermione to move on.
Oh, yeah.
Neither of them apologized to her either. Like, I realized they combated with each other, but they made her go through it in a way that she did not have to. And she put herself sort of, yeah, and they probably should have been like, sorry, we put you through that. Next time we get in a big fight, we will do a custody arrangement so we all get fun time with Hermione. And so Harry gets the egg. He succeeds. Everyone cheers. He's very happy. And they give him the scores, and Karkaroff gives him a 4 because Karkaroff is obviously biased, and he gets a 10 from Bagman. Anyhow, I think it's weird that Bagman gives Harry a perfect 10, because earlier on he said Harry was the underdog, and if you're betting on Harry and you want to make the most money, you want Harry to win, but you also want Harry to have less people betting on him to win, because the way betting works is everyone who bets for Harry to win splits the pot when Harry wins. So I think giving Harry a 10, especially when he's seen the other competitors go, is bad for his plan of making money off of Harry Potter winning. Like, he should give Harry a high enough score to know he'll carry on and do well, but not such a high score that more people will think he's going to win, because you don't actually want that.
Yeah, he's really showing all his cards. He's not very subtle.
But, like, it's not even the right way. Like, illegal betting is his whole thing, and he's not even, like, good at fixing the game. Like, you don't want to do it like that for Harry. Like, what? Like, if you want to make the most money, you give Harry a slightly lower score, so less people will bet on him, so you'll win more. Like, he's bad at fixing sports, and that's the thing he does. Like, the only thing he does, and yet he's bad at it.
Yeah, but Ron is able to tell Harry kind of how the other champions did and how they got their eggs. So we learned that Cedric transfigured a rock into a dog to lure the dragon away, which kind of worked, but I think the dragon last minute decided he actually would prefer Cedric, so Cedric got burnt a little bit, but he got his egg.
Because it didn't want to toast a dog, because it's not an asshole. This is the only douchebaggy thing Cedric's ever done. Why a dog? If I'm in the audience, even if I know it's a rock and it's not really a dog, watching that dragon go for that dog would be horrifying, and I want no part of it.
Yeah, I was thinking that's probably why they didn't show any of this in the movie, because anything with a dog, especially in a movie, you're like, I don't want to see that. Yeah, Fleur puts a trance on the dragon, is what Ron describes it as. That's
honestly what I think I would have done as well, is put it to sleep or something.
But then she also catches her skirt on fire because the dragon breathes out some fire as it's snoring. And then Crumb does what we find out later was what Sirius recommended, but he casts a spell right into the dragon's eye. But then he loses points, obviously, because it falls onto the real eggs, and you weren't supposed to wreck those. Yeah, so when Ron brings Harry out for, like, his judging, I was just wondering how the judging is, like, regulated, because it doesn't really seem fair, because obviously the heads of the houses, or all the heads of the schools are all judged, which makes sense, so you have one from each place. But then you have Barty, Crouch, and Bagman as judges, and there are 2 officials from the UK, so it just seems really biased to me.
I agree. I think the way they do the scoring is really just, like, give them a score out of 10 is not, especially when it's obvious with, like, Karkaroff. I think the way they should do the scoring is the way they do the scoring on the show 4 Weddings. So I don't know if you've seen the show 4 Weddings, but basically 4 brides have their weddings, and each bride attends the other bride's weddings. And then you vote, and the winning wedding, like the wedding that was the best, gets a free honeymoon. And the way the scoring works is every bride scores the other bride's weddings, not their own, from 1 to 3. So, like, first best, second best, third best. And they can break it down to categories like food, dress, venue, or whatever. And each ranking has a numerical value assigned to it. And then you just add up the points, and that's how you figure out the total. And by making it so you have to order them, like first, second, third, you're removing any opportunity to rig it, because you have to put one of them in first, and you do not include yourself, so you don't get to vote. In this case, that professor or whatever wouldn't vote for their own student. And I think that's the way to do it. So you can break it down into score categories if you wanted to in this too, like have one score for how good their time was, one for if they had any penalties or wounds, one for how difficult what they did was, or one for like cleverness of the method they chose. Or you can just literally do combining all those features together. Okay, I think Crumb was the best. I think Harry was the second best. I think Fleur was the third best, or whatever. But, like, I think that's the way you do it if you're gonna let people who are emotionally invested in specific participants be the judges. So everybody go watch 4 Weddings to understand how to do Triwizard tournaments.
Some great reality TV. Harry gets his score, but he doesn't really care about his score because all he cares about is that Ron's his friend again, which, you know, I love that for him.
And also, he didn't die.
Yeah, I mean that too. He feels relief.
Not only did he not die, he still has a friend.
He has Ron, and Ron obviously means the most to him. The thing he will miss the most, because, yeah, Harry's and Ron's relationships very undervalued in, I think, the fandom. But Harry's just so happy he has Ron back. They go for, like, you know, nice little bro walk to catch up or whatever. It's described as where Ron gives him more of a play-by-play of the task, and then we get a surprise jump scare of Rita Skeeter, who was hiding.
That is a jump scare.
Hiding, I don't know, somewhere.
Hiding in the bushes.
And then she's like, Harry, can you give me a quick word with the tournament? And Harry's just like, yeah, goodbye. And he walks away, and love the return of Sassy Harry.
Love Sassy Harry. He's so important. They really do sass him down in the movies because he is so funny. He is so funny.
They really make him like be like this poor troubled kid, which he is. But yeah, they don't really. And Daniel Radcliffe is so funny.
He is so funny. He really is. Like, he's so charming, and like the rare opportunities where they let him.
Yeah. I think despite the sixth movie being terrible, the few comedy moments that Harry did have were really good. Like, Daniel Radcliffe can do it. It's just, everything else about that movie was just, a catastrophe. And
I feel like this moment specifically would have been great in the movie, because sometimes the things Harry says that are funny, he doesn't say out loud, he says in his head, so I understand why we can't have them in the movies. But this is verbal. This would have been funny, and he says it out loud, and Rita Skeeter is a character they included, so like, it would have been so good.
I think the problem is that they didn't really focus a lot on the Rita Skeeter plot. Like, she's mentioned, and the article's mentioned, but it's more for narrative purposes. And with the love triangle that Rita paints is only kind of mentioned in it, with the Harry, Crumb, and Hermione thing. It's not really a big focus.
Yeah, but it would have taken like 5 seconds of film time to have her try and get a quote from Harry and him say goodbye.
It's just a really funny line, especially because, like, what was she expecting? She's like, yeah, can I get, like, a line from you after I, slandered you in the paper?
I wish Harry had a lawyer. This would be the perfect moment to be like, yes, my quote is, please contact my lawyer.
I just imagine Harry and Ron walking away, flipping her the bird.
Like, I imagine them walking at first before she jump scares. Like, it's almost like the end of a romance movie. They're walking into the sunset. They're, like, holding hands, swinging arms. Like, the birds are flying around them. It's very Disney happy ending.
Back together again.
And then she jumps out of the bush, like, terrifying jump scare. And then they walk off backwards, middle fingers up, beautiful, wholesome.
Definitely some foreshadowing for how Rita's going to turn at this. But that's how the end of the chapter ends, and like we just got instant relief. Harry's, he's done this dangerous task. He doesn't have to worry about the next task until later on.
I think this is a really optimistic ending to a chapter. Like, it's such a, like, happy ending chapter. Like, even with the jump scare, Harry getting a one-liner off sort of takes away any fear that might add. So it immediately is, like, it's just, like, a happy ending to the first section of the book, almost. Like, it's the wholesome friendship reunited, Harry realizing if he survived one task, maybe he can survive other tasks. Like, he proved himself to the school. He didn't die. Like, so many things are reassuring, and so many like plot points have been resolved. It's like, it feels very satisfying.
Oh yeah.
I just think, like, as a whole, this chapter is so fun and exciting, and it's like a roller coaster of emotions. Like, you start with the stress, the anxiety, and the nausea of waiting for the task, and the exhilaration and excitement of the task, and of doing the thing you love, which is basically Quidditch, and succeeding and having fun in a dramatic way. And then the joy and the relief of succeeding and winning and having everyone cheering for you. And then making up with Ron. Like, it's just like, it goes from like stress, 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 fear, 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 joy, 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 happiness, success, satisfaction. Like,
that's a great way to leave it off of, especially Harry basically flipping off Rita Skeeter.
And then it's all downhill from here. All downhill from here.
Yeah, things get a bit more serious. I think that's it for us for now. Thank you for listening.
Feel free to give us 5-star review on Spotify, which I think is a thing because a podcast I listen to always asks for them. So do that, or give us a 4-star review. Or if you hate us, give us a 2-star review.
Yeah, you can leave a comment on Spotify, or you can reach out on social media at Pottery Visited, or you can email us at potteryvisitedpodcast@gmail.com. And we'll be back next time to discuss Chapter 21 of Goblet of Fire, the House Elf Liberation Front. See you next time. Bye!